Hello.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. So good to meet you.
Thank you.
Let's talk.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk to you, Ahna.
Thank you. Did you always know that you wanted to be a journalist?
Yes. That, I can't say when I was an infant, but somewhere along the age of 4 or 5 years old, I began saying I wanted to be a reporter. Both my parents were avid newspaper readers. They took every newspaper they could. They read newspapers. They discussed newspapers. So neither of my parents finished high school, and they used the newspapers to educate themselves. One of my father's favorite sayings was, a newspaper is the poor man's university. And indeed it was for both my parents. And I repeat for emphasis, I think enveloped in that was the reason that I began to say to myself, I want to be a reporter.
Did you always know that you wanted to be an artist?
I don't know that I would have thought of that, but I love to draw. In my books at school, I'm listening, but I'm drawing. And I loved the Sunday school lessons because they had pictures. It was in a small town, those things matter. Yes, I guess I thought I would always want that, but I didn't even know what an artist was. It was a great joy to discover that I could do that. My dad once asked me, why do you paint? Why do you do those pictures? And I said, well, to learn to see. And I suppose that I'd seen everything in this little town of 35 people, so that the bigger world was just really exciting to see. But you had to look at it. You couldn't just let it flash by.
When you took over the CBS Evening News for Walter Cronkite, you replaced his classic closing, and that's the way it is, with a single word, courage. While this closing was more or less successful, it was undeniably bold. Can you speak to why courage was your word of choice?
First of all, succeeding a legend, an icon like a Walter Cronkite is no small chore. And I'm not here to argue whether I did it well or poorly. Others will have to make that judgment. But I was encouraged to have a sign-off.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this summer-ending Labor Day. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Courage. Good night.
It had a ring to me. Not that I've always had courage, I haven't, but it's something to which one should aspire. And I was taught coming up that, courage is the most important value, because all other values spring from it. So I thought, well, it's short, it's direct, it's forward-looking, and it's positive and optimistic, so why not? So that's why and how I chose it. But the people I worked for didn't like it at all, and they first suggested that I try something else, and then they demanded that if I wasn't going to try something else, at least drop that. So I did. Not very courageous, I'm afraid.
What was your connection with Ann Richards?
Well, Ann Richards lived in this very building on the 3rd floor. I had, of course, known her here and there, but I was living in New York at the time, and she and another friend of mine came to an art opening and a party that you gave afterwards, and we had friends in common. We played bridge. A couple of times she'd say, I've got to go give a speech at so-and-so, come ride with me. She began talking about this idea of a girls' school for young women leaders. And we all thought, that is such a good idea. She made that happen and made us promise that we would always support it.
I think part of the reason that Ann Richards and I got along so well from the very beginning was kind of a shared love of Texas. And then when we moved into Austin, and we moved in the same building where Ann Richards lived, the friendship became deeper and broader that time. And I too recall Anne talking about the school, having a school. She didn't refer to it as a school named for her,
Yeah.
but she outlined the school as it now exists as kind of a dream that she had. Anne realized that she probably wouldn't be alive to see the dream completely fulfilled. Mm-hmm. But by dreaming and sharing the dream with other people, she laid the groundwork for it to happen.
It's a wonderful dream and a wonderful school.
What does leadership mean to you?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Leadership to me means inspiring others to do their best. Mm-hmm. That hearts can inspire other hearts with their fire. And leadership has that fire. One speaks of leadership, there's a tendency to talk in terms of presidents or generals or the heads of large corporations. But there's a lot of leadership at its best that doesn't get recognized. For example, a really dedicated teacher is the definition of a dedicated teacher is to be a leader. They're individuals who burn with a fire inside themselves to be as good as they can be. But in so doing, they inspire others to get the best out of themselves.
What do you want to see from the next generation of people?
Oh, I'm already seeing it. I think there is, first of all, they're smarter than we were. And they have that goodness and that desire to inspire, I think. I think it's going to be a wonderful world for them. Mm-hmm.
If this were a newscast, how would you sign off for the graduating class of 2020?
Whoa.
Be humble, be grateful, be modest, and dare to be great.
Dare to be great, yes. You did with that.
Okay, well, thank you both so much for being so generous
Well,
with your time and your
very good
space
questions.
and information. Thank you.
It was fun.
It was.